everyone. My name is Michael. I'm a solution architect for NGINX. I welcome you to this breakout session where we're going to learn, test, and deploy NGINX as an API gateway. Now, NGINX API gateway is a features-rich and powerful API gateway, but yet it's still lightweight and able to run from your laptop. Right now, we're going to learn through this one together. Right, let's take a look at the agenda for this sessions. First and foremost, we're going to address what's API management, and then we're going to discuss what's API gateway and what are the essential functionality that make up as an API gateway. Last but not least, we're going to demonstrate some of the cool features of NGINX Plus that is an API gateway, which you can follow along. In this audience, there are people who are well versed with NGINX, or there are people who are just getting started with NGINX. Now, I have content for both for a group of audience as well. Right, stay tuned. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. What's API management and what's API gateway? API gateway, or known as data plane. Actually, API gateway is nothing but a OSI layer 7 proxy. Now, it's just the traffic. It's a proxy that handling all the request traffic from the client. So you can do the API gateway, the handling the request routing, and then you can do the authentication and authorizations. You can do the rate limiting. As you know, API is very vulnerable to misuse. So it's good to have some security control. And last but not least, API gateway, sometimes people want to do exception handling as well to give a better user experience and for security reason. Now, API gateway is nothing but a proxy that handling the API request. On the other hand, API management, which we know as control plane, is usually come with a very nice UI for web portal for administrator to log into the web portal to do the API definitions, versionings, publishings. And then it can give you the ease of use to define the policy management and the centrally to monitor, to have analytic and monitoring. And also it will help you to generate developer portals or the developer documentations for your user to discover your API. Now, API management is a control plane. API gateway is the data plane. Some vendors have a very coupled solutions where you must deploy API management together with the API gateway. But for NGINX, we choose to adopt a decoupled architecture. You can run NGINX Plus as API gateway solely by itself, or you can choose to run API gateway together with NGINX controller with API management. Let's take a visual look at this. Right. So we have an NGINX open source or NGINX Plus can run as API gateway to handling the traffic. Now, on the other hand, it's optional. You can choose to deploy NGINX controller, which provide you a GUI dashboard for administrator to carry out the API management task as well, right? As I say again, NGINX have a decoupled solutions where you can choose to deploy API gateway solely by itself without the NGINX controller. And NGINX controller is beyond the scope of today's discussions. We will focus on API gateway, on how to get a lightweight API gateway run from your laptop. Now, let's deep dive into API gateway. Now, what's API gateway? Just now, as I mentioned, API gateway is a layer 7 proxy, right? When an API client, it could be a bot, it could be user, it could be mobile application. When they send an API request, for example, in this case, /API/warehouse/inventory, depend on the predefined settings in the API gateway or predefined policy, the API gateway will route this request to certain upstream services or backend API endpoint. Some of the requests to another path will route to different services as well. Routing request is a fundamental of API gateway. Besides routing request, this is not sufficient for production use. Now, what are the essential services that make up in the API gateway for production use? Let's take a look. Now, these are the 6 essential functionality which I call out here. Again, depend on company, or depend on the team requirements. Sometimes you have more, sometimes you have less. Let's take a look on how you can easily configure NGINX to achieve all of these results, right? Now, first and foremost, we can talk about TLS terminations. To configure the SSL terminations, what we need to do is we're using a directive. It's called listen directive 443, which is standard port and with the flag SSL, right? Now we need to specify where is the certificate and where's the key. And this optionally, we can choose to define the SSL protocol and cipher suite. Now, this is very simple way on how you can configure NGINX to do the SSL terminations or TLS terminations. Now, as we define TLS terminations, it's always good to have a redirective for HTTP because some of the customers or client might accidentally go to port 80, right? You want to redirect them with a 301, redirect them to the 443, right? So this is a standard way on how you do the TLS termination. Let's take a look on the second features of an essential functionality of API gateway, which is request routing. Now, NGINX support nested node, the location path, and also different type of matching. For example, there's equal sign, location equals /get. So basically, the request must start with slash and get an exact path match. Then only will execute the logic inside this block. For the second example, we are going to have a curly dash. Curly dash is basically the regular expressions. Now, the request path must match these regular expressions before we're able to carry out into the logic in this block. And the last example, we're using a prefix. There's without any equal sign or curly dash. /post, basically, you have /post, it will execute into this location block, as well as /post A, /post B, or whatever path the prefix with the /post will get executed here as well. Now, with this different type of nested locations or different locations, we are able to apply different policy at different level. For example, we can choose to define authentication in /get. We can choose to apply rate limiting in a /delay, or we can choose to define fine-grained control in a /post, which we're going to take a look later. Right. The third functionality we're going to talk about is load balancing, right? In how to define, configure the load balancing at NGINX, we will define an upstream block. Upstream is basically the backend pool member, right? Upstream, the HTTP backend. Now, so we see a server, there's a pool member, right? Now, usually we'll define IP address as well as the port number, right? Now, because I'm using, later on in our example, we're going to use Docker Compose. Instead of using IP address, which is static, I'm going to use the service name, the app1 and app2. Because of service name, I need to be able to resolve the name. Hence, I'm using a resolver directive. This resolver directive in the upstream block is only available in NGINX Plus. It's a commercial version. Right, this is a Docker internal DNS 127.0.0.11. Because of this, we will the NGINX will resolve the app1 and app2 services to the correct IP address. Here is one of the way of how I define the cookie persistency. Right, this is also only available in NGINX Plus. Sticky is a directive, then it's cookie, then this is cookie name srv_iv, and the expiry is for 1 hour. So we're going to see the actual demo later. We move on to another features. It's called rate limiting. How to define rate limiting in NGINX? What we're going to do is we're going to use this directive limit_rec request_zone. Right now, to define rate limiting, first of all, we need to identify what key we're going to use as a rate limiting. Now, a lot of time we're using IP address, source IP address, client IP address as a rate limiting parameter. Sometimes it works well, but sometimes it might not work well. The reason is because if they say you have upstream firewall, upstream load balancer to do the source netting for you, then you're not able to see the actual client resource, a client IP address, the rate limiting might not be effective. So NGINX support a lot of functionalities, a lot of flexibility for you to choose. You can choose to use header, choose to use cookie, choose to use path. But in this simple example, I will use a remote address, which is a client IP address. I define a zone. It's called per client zone. It's just memory zone, and then this is the rate limiting is 1 request per second. Right. So this is the first step. I define the zone, the rate limiting zone, and secondly, in the location path, I'm going to define here limit_rec directive. I will say which zone to use per client zone, which is matching to this the definition here. Now, if you exceed the limit 1 request per second, I can choose to return a custom the error code as well. In this example, I choose to return 402 HTTP code, which we're going to see how we can customize the return message as well. Now, after this, we're going to talk about client authentications and authorizations. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to show you 3 different ways on how you can achieve a client authentication. The first and foremost, the most easiest way, we're using a map directive. The map directive is like a dictionary. It's basically, we're going to create a variable, and the value for this variable depends on the value of another variable. Now, let's take a look here. In this map directive block, this API client name is a variable, the value for API client name depends on the HTTP underscore X dash underscore API underscore key. So basically, this is a header, right? HTTP header X dash API dash key. Now, what the value of this X dash API dash key, we will search in this map dictionary, and then if there's a match, we will go to return this value as this variable. Now, by default, we're going to return as an empty string, right? Now, so, but this is just the first step of how we define the map block. How do we call this, right? So basically, in the slash post, I'm going to use an auth underscore request to trigger authentication. It's sub request authentication. Basically, you will generate a sub request to internal location block. So auth underscore request will go to validate API key. Now, which is this block? Now, I put equal sign. I want to add exact match, and I have another directive. It's called internal. Internal basically is the client for an external user not able to execute this location, and this locations is only meant to be called by NGINX within itself, right? So here, now I'm going to search. I'm going to evaluate API underscore client underscore name. What is the value of this one? If the value is equal to the empty string, I will return is 443. If the value returns some things, I'm going to return 204, which is okay, and then the engineer will continue to execute the rest of the logic. Now, this is one of the simple steps to define the client authentication. Now, however, every time we want to add additional API key, you need to modify this .conf file, add another line, and then you need to issue a command of NGINX reload. Now, it's useful, but sometimes in the production, you need to remove, adjust to modify. It becomes very troublesome. Now, I'm going to introduce NGINX Plus versions, which are going to improve on these things. We will use something called key value store. It's an in-memory table store, right? We are going to use the directive key value underscore key val underscore zone. This is a zone name, and then this is my persistency. I'm going to persist into the local drive. So what basically this thing does, right? I'm going to retrieve the value of this HTTP header x dash kv dash API dash key. I'm going to return the value of this variable kv and that underscore is allowed, depending on the value of here, right? So in the slash anything, and let's say in this location block, I want to be what is this value? Now, NGINX say, in order to retrieve the value for this variable, I will go into this key value store and then find this header to retrieve the value from this memory from this zone. If they say the value is not equal to 1, I will return the error. If they say equal to 1, I will continue to execute. Now, before we're able to do that, first and foremost, we need to go and create a table. Now, to interact with the in-memory table, we will interact with NGINX API. Right? This is, for example, NGINX API configured to run on port 8080. Now, this is a way on how I do a post command. This is my key. This is my value. When I do a post command, basically I update into the table. Once I update to the table, I'm able to use this key for the authentication, which we're going to see later. And last but not least, we're going to talk about job token authentications. Now, one of the most common way of doing the job validations, we will use auth underscore JWT to turn on, and this is my secret file, right? Which I will show you later. Now, if by this two directive, we will do authentication validations is matching the right token. We allow you to go through, but we can take one step further to do the validation, to do the claim validations as well. Now, in the job token, there's a claim. In this, for example, we use a UID as a claim. If the UID equal to 222, I allow you to backend resource. If the UID doesn't equal to 222, even though you have a right token but without the right claim, I will reject you as an unauthorized user as well. Having all of this these 6 essential services, let's take a hands-on look about how this thing being configured, right? We're going to use NGINX Plus as a container image to tell about some of the features. You can request for a trial license. Go to nginx.com, free trial. Just click on the free trial and then fill in the blank, and then you will get a certificate for you to download the binary. And also you can follow the guide in the documentations on how to build NGINX Plus container. Now, in my laptop, I already have built the NGINX image, right? After that, we're going to share this link. This is my GitHub repo, API Gateway. That's an easy guide for you to follow through. then there's step by step on how you can execute the command as well, right? I'm going to copy, for example, I'm going to copy this one, right? Go to my, so okay, first, let me just show you images. I want to get NGINX Plus. So in my local MacBook, I already have an NGINX Plus release 24. The image is being installed. I'm going to do git clone. Right. So all the files being cloned into my local drive. Right, then one side. Let's take a look in this preview. So once after git clone, then the next command is to the next command is to start up the entire container, Take a look at the Docker Compose. Basically, I have an app1, endpoint, HTTP bin, app, sample app, and app2, same things. I want to do the load balancing demo. I'm going to expose this NGINX, and then this is the NGINX configuration file, the certificate, self-signed certificate, and etc. Right? Okay, so that's fine. Now, let's take a look at the NGINX configuration file. Right. Now, okay, we're going to show you on how to the first things on the SL termination. If I do a curl command to HTTP localhost port 80, right? Do a get. Now it's already do the redirections. In the browser will help you to automatically do the redirections, but in the curl command, it will not. If you put a minus L, it will follow through. And you see, you will hit into another error. It's a certificate error because I'm using a self-signed certificate. So hence, you're going to hit into error. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put a -K to ignore the self-signed certificate error. You realize everything goes through smoothly, right? So what we just did, I just demonstrate to you port 80 do a redirections, and port 443. This is a self-signed certificate which I'm going to show you on how to do SSL termination, right? Now from now on, I'm going to directly hit into put -K HTTPS localhost /get, right? So everything works fine. Right? Just so if you want to see, you can show curl command -vvv and then HTTPS -K HTTPS localhost to see the self-signed certificate which I have just created, API GW gateway demo, right? Right, fine. The second thing we're going to show you is on the path routing, right? So we talk about we can do the absolute path, prefix path, as well as the regular expressions. I'm going to show you the regular expressions, the curly dash, the delay. I do the curl -K HTTPS localhost delay, right? Now, so basically it's a delay /1. It was the endpoint was sit for 1 second before return response to me, right? So it's simple as that. Now, after that, if I choose to do 2, it will sit for 2 seconds before it return to me. Now, as we know, this regular expression is below 0 and 9, and then it's an integer, right? If I put a character AAA, now I'm going to hit to an error. Now, why this error 404? Because this location path is the regular expression is mismatched. Mismatch is a resource not found 404. But 404, why it written in the JSON error message? Is where we're going to look at bottom on how to create custom response message, right? Now, if we hit into 404, error underscore page directive 404, I'm going to throw it, I want to redirect it into the internal locations, alias 404, and I'm going to return the 404 messages, and then this is resource not found, right? Now, if I want to change it, please try again, right? Please try again, right? Now, after, if we ever to do any changes to the conf file, we need to do a NGINX reload. So we can issue a Docker command to the container to do a reload. So, right? Okay, Docker exec. Okay, this is NGINX -s reload. Right, I will reload. Now, if I do a try again, see, this is the configuration. The new configuration has been reflected, right? So now this is a way of how you can create a custom error message for API. Now, after showing you let's just put here the regular expressions. Now I'm going to show you another thing is a slash post, right? For example, I'm going to do slash post, right? Slash post, as you know, post is referred to the HD post command. But what I just did is I just send a get command to the post endpoint, and then what I did here is basically I can this is a prefix. At the same time, I can impose a request method check. If let's say it doesn't match a post, I will return 405 and 405 error return 405, and I scroll to the very bottom 405. I choose to return a custom message. HTTP method is not supported, right? So this is another way on how we can do a control on the request routing. Now after that, I'm going to show you on the persistency and the load balancing. Now, so let me just scroll up here. In the upstream block, as I just mentioned to you, I have app 1 and app 2, right? Now, for NGINX, we have a, okay, let me just create a browser, pull a browser over. Right. In NGINX Plus, we configure something called a dashboard. It's on for 8080. Okay, dashboard local host for 8080, right? This is the NGINX Plus dashboard, right? In the HD upstreams, I have a two pool member. Now, if I start to do a curl command, HTTP localhost /get, right? You'll see the request sent to the pool member number 1. If I send pool member number 2, pool member number 1, number 2. As you can see, this being round robin to one another. Now, but right now, if I want to choose to do persistency, what I did is here I already used the directive as a cookie persistency, right? To do the cookie persistency, I will need to do curl command -k -c is to save the cookie, right? It's a cookie.txt file, HTTPS localhost again, right? Now, if I look at to my local drive, then you can see there's cookie file, right? Now, if right now, if I want to use a cookie, I put a -b, right? So it's a small b. You realize after I start to using the cookie, it has been persisted to the pool member number 1 instead of pool member number 2, right? No matter how much request I send, we will just continue to persist to server number 1. There's a way of how we do the cookie persistency, right? Now after that, the next demo I'm going to show you is on the rate limiting. Now, which I shared with you the theory later just now. Okay, let me just browse to here. Okay, sorry. /get. I have the rate limiting, okay, per client zone, which is 1 request per second, right? Now, okay, let me just remove the cookie. Okay, the request is fine, right? Now, in the shell command, if I put two exclamation mark followed by a semicolon, 2 exclamation mark followed by a semicolon, and same thing, what it does, it will repeat this. It will repeat the last command repeatedly 3 times, right? Now, if you realize here, the first request went through successfully, and second and third request being rate limited. You see 429 and 429 error message has been mapped to here, right? 429 slow down because it's rate limited, right? So you can choose to return any custom message that you want. So this is the rate limiting, right? So just now we talked about there are 3 ways to do the authentications. Using the map directive, and use the key value store, and using the jot token authentications. Now the map directive, which I'm not going to show you, I'm going to directly show you the key value store, right? For us to do that, first and foremost, we need to go and interact with the key value store directive, right? Let me just okay. If I want to list the value in this key value store, it basically currently is nothing, right? Now, if I copy the second command, basically I just want to insert a value into the table. It's basically the key is user 1 and then value is 1, right? If I list back this value, you can see there's a value. Now, if I want to choose to insert the second value, user2 and key value 1, and then check again, there's user1 and user2 in the table, right? Now, so right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to in here is slash anything. I'm going to basically to check on this key value is key kv underscore is allowed. What is the value in for this variable? And this variable, in order to retrieve the value for this variable, NGINX will come to this this key value key val directive to use this header to do the mapping. For us to test it out, okay. So HTTPS, okay, this is without any header, so anything, this will fail, forbidden, right? Right now, if I send a header, okay, like s-kv-api-key, right? Now, if the value is user1, you realize the authentication successfully and when it go through. Now we know there's a user1 and user2, right? If I put a user3, you realize you kind of fail the authentication part as well. Now this is the second demo of key authentications. Now we're going to show you the last authentication, which is JWT token authentications. Right. Okay. Now, API secret, there's a JSON web token, right? This is value. If I go to my browser, yeah. If I do a base64 decrypt, and this is my value. It's the API gateway demo secret, right? Now in this JSON web token, jwt.io website, if I paste my value here, I can modify the string here if I want to. Okay, let's say I just UID. Now for right now, I just put a simple 111. Now this is my JSON token, JWT token, right? I copy to here. Okay, so let's follow this guide. Right. I put a token variable in my shell. After that, I'm going to do the curl command, right? You realize it's forbidden. Now, even though authentication successfully, but it failed. The reason is because I do a fine-grained control, right? If it's headed. Yeah, just over here. Right. The claim UID claim must be equal to 222 in order for it to go through. But currently, my claim is 111. If I change to 222, this website will generate a new token for me. Right? If I put a token, update my token. Now I repeat the same command again. This time it goes through successfully. It passed through the JWT token validation as well as the claim validations. Right? Now, in this quick and simple demo, we're going to show you we show you the TLS terminations, we show you the persistency, we show you the request routing different cloud policy, we show you the key value store authentication method. Okay, we show you JWT token authentications as well. There's a lot more to learn in this NGINX Plus to use as API gateway. Definitely, I hope you enjoy these sessions and continue to your learning in how to use NGINX API to power your production applications. Thank you for your time and thank you for joining our session. Thank you.